here's a great leadership thing. Like, as a leader, everything that goes wrong is my fault. Everything that goes well is somebody else's fault. You give the credit, you take the blame, similar to you praise publicly, you lift everybody up, and then you reprimand privately. If somebody needs a little slap on the wrist, do that in a one-on-one. Don't put them on blast in a team.
If you're finding value in what you're watching, consider hitting the subscribe button and turning on the bell notification. Oh, and don't forget to drop a comment. I love hearing your thoughts and ideas. By the way, we have got a ton of other videos waiting for you. And if you are ready to level up your mindset, come hang out with us in our private Facebook group called Mindset for Business Success. Welcome to Super Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm your host, Shahid Durrani. Today we have with us Mike Malloy. Mike helps CEOs get more time by providing fractional executives. Welcome to our show, my friend.
Thank you, Shahid. It is a pleasure to be here and excited to dive into the conversation today. And I'm going to kick it off with a joke real quick.
Sure.
Do you know how many therapists it takes to change a light bulb?
No.
It takes one, and it takes a while, and the light bulb has to want to change.
Oh, you always need, that person needs to change. In this case, the light bulb needs to change. Yeah. What we do with our clients is that we always say that you have to invite the change in, because you can't really make someone want to change. They need to invite it in. So it's very similar to that. Yeah. So based on that joke, was there a transformation that you went through as well?
Oh, yeah. I've had a few iterations by this stage in life. As a little bit of background, like I started as a Deloitte consultant right out of undergrad, and they were kind enough to pay for me to go to grad school in Georgetown. I got my master's in computer science. And then I transformed into the stereotypical traveling sunglasses salesman and social entrepreneur. So from age 25 to 30 was running my own company, selling luxury Italian sunglasses, donating 10% of the profits to fund cataract surgeries. And ultimately, I learned that there's for profits, there's non-profits, and then there's no profits. And we ended up in that third bucket with some humbling lessons, shutting down that first company. And I'd say the next transformation for me was working as a program director, running the house and incubator in DC, supporting early stage entrepreneurs for the next 5 years. I started teaching at Georgetown as an adjunct professor. And then I got married, and I don't know if you heard about it, there was a small global pandemic a few years ago.
Oh, yeah.
You heard about that? Okay, yeah. Yeah. So my wife and I left DC during the pandemic. We migrated to the beach here in Delaware.
Oh.
And so we've been living here full time for almost 4 years, and are ideally never going back to civilization, as we are raising our 2-year-old chief cuteness officer here in Delaware.
Love it. So can you share how entrepreneurs should approach strategic planning when they're trying to aim to get to the 20 million mark? And if there's any key considerations or milestones that they should be looking at this type of a journey?
Yeah, absolutely. And one is to take a step back and realize that you can't do all of the things to get to 20 million. It's not possible. There is no brute force solution or algorithm you're going to run. And Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy, it's who, not how. The goal isn't how do you do it. It's who are the people that are smarter than you, that have complementary skills and strengths and abilities, such that you can unleash them on problems that are in their zone of genius and align with their unique abilities, that they can go do it. And you tell them what the problem is. And my dad taught me this lesson, the 10-80-10 rule for delegation. You're there for the first 10%. You describe the problem, the why, how does this factor into the overall business? And then you describe the last 10% of what does success look like? Here's the goal line. What's the DoD definition of done? And then you let them run the 80% in the middle. And you might have zigged, they're going to zag. That's fine, because they know where they're going. And as a CEO and a leader of a company on the path to 20 million, you can't be in the weeds in almost anything. You can wear maybe 1, maybe 2 departments you're leading, but you need to bring in other experts who've been there, done that, have the playbook, in some cases have the relationships and know how to execute and really lead those parts of the business, such that it only takes maybe 1 hour a week of you meeting with a fractional executive who's leading the sales team or serving as your fractional COO or chief people officer, that those are things as you grow and scale. Yeah, day zero in the garage with no money. Yeah, you're doing all the things. But each time you step up and maybe you add a zero in the bank account or the annual revenue, it's time to really assess what got you here and recognize that's not what's going to get you there. And you need to fundamentally change how you're spending your time. I think that's probably one of my biggest pieces of advice for the listeners. If you're not monthly or at least quarterly doing the time audit, like, start doing it. And I'm going to track my time. This is so annoying. Dude, I do it religiously. I use a tool called Toggle Track. And at the end of every month, I can look at a report and literally see where did I spend all my time. And I also track family time because my number one priority, and literally I have a note card here on my desk with a North Star question. Is this going to create more time for me to spend with my wife and son before he starts preschool? Like, all of my decisions go through that question. And you might be at a different stage of life and family, and that might not be your question. But the idea of having a North Star question that you filter opportunities through, I'm excited to be here, have this conversation, hopefully share some wisdom with the audience such that it can have an exponential increase on my impact and help others. And doesn't mean I have to go meet with every single listener one-on-one, because that wouldn't help me spend more time with my wife and son.
So do you also hire for your own organization, fractional executives?
We do. Yeah, we absolutely drink our Kool-Aid. And I started this about 3 years ago with a handful of my friends and then former colleagues being like, hey, I think this fractional executive, I think there's a there. If I go find a project, do you have any bandwidth you want to take on work? And I'm like, yeah. Fast forward 3 years, like, I'm all in. This is the future of work. We have over 250 fractional executives in our roster across every business function. And we have niche down to focus on fractional sales executives for B2B technology companies. That's our sweet spot. Like, we're crushing that. All of these people, and I would say at least a dozen of them I have hired myself to help build Malloy Industries. It was the Mike show. It's now the Mike and Tina and Laura and Mark and Sherry show. And we continue to grow our team. This week, we actually had a new team member as a project manager, because we can't do all of the things. And this is another Dan Sullivan concept of a self-expanding company, where as it grows, it's not just the CEO who's doing this time audit and realizing what do they need to cut, what do they need to delegate, and what do they need to systematize, such that there's probably 20%, the Pareto principle, 20% of your time and activities are creating 80% of the value. That other 80% needs to go to somebody else where they love it. And then every quarter, every 3 months, they should look at, hey, what do I want to cut, delegate, systematize? And then if we look around the bus, is there a who can take it, or do we need to recruit some new who's?
So how does the fractional executives work exactly?
Yeah, so we have a kind of 3-step matchmaking process, where step one is I'll meet with the entrepreneur for 45 minutes. We'll do what we call a sales scalability assessment and really dig into their business, understand like what's their most expensive problem that they need to solve, what's the objective, the dream outcome they're working towards, understand what are the metrics for success, how do you know it's not working now, how are we going to measure before, during, and after the project, and then really understanding any constraints or other key stakeholders involved in the decision-making process, like who are they going to work with on the team, what's the timeline and budget. And in terms of budget, it's typically a 10K commitment for the first month. And one of the benefits of working with fractional executives is that you can ramp that up or down on a month-to-month basis. 10K is typically 40% capacity for one of our fractional executives. We're not lawyers billing in 6-minute increments. We're really focused on the ROI and striving to deliver 5 to 10x return on investment, depending on however much companies are paying us. You may not see that in month one, as it takes a little while depending on the sales cycle, but ultimately, like, we're really trying to help you 10x your business. And understanding that once we scope out the project, we have this roster of over 250 vetted, trustworthy fractional executives. And we have a complex matchmaking algorithm, which we use to then recommend the top 3 that are best suited for your organization and solving specific problems and challenges that you have. And so then the next step, the Malloy match, is for the entrepreneur to interview the 3 candidates. And I promise you, all 3 of them can do the work. It's not based on skill. It's really a kind of, is this a good culture fit? What is the energy and the vibes of somebody we think we want to work with? And ultimately, the CEO is going to get to take 1 or 2 of those hats off, give them to this person. And instead of spending 4 to 10 hours a week trying to solve these problems, they spend an hour a week meeting with a professional expert who is solving them. and they don't have to be in the weeds. It can in some ways be protected from some of the distractions, shiny objects, fires that come up from that business function, whether it's sales or another function. And then step 3 is we meet again after the interviews, figure out, hey, who was the best fit and when do you want to get started? And finalize timeline, scope, budget. And we charge a small success fee. A traditional headhunter, we charge 33% of the first year's salary. We charge much less than that in just a fraction of that first month of working with a fractional executive.
Cool. So what sales strategies or tactics you found to be effective in driving the growth, the revenue growth to 20 million milestone?
Absolutely. So one of the key things is that you need scalable systems and processes. Like a lot of entrepreneurs are charismatic and they have high energy and a great network, and they might be able to get to 1, 2, 4 million in revenue just with them being them. You can't get to 20 million. You can't raise a Series A with we're just going to have the entrepreneur sell to everybody. And so what that requires is coming in and really auditing, assessing the current sales processes framework. What are the different activities at the stages of the funnel? Because there's usually some friction spots and there's always some holes where conversion rates are lower than you would like to see them, whether that's getting qualified leads at the top. What does the kind of first discovery call look like? The structure of the demos, and when you're doing sales demos, like how many of them that convert to the next stage of when you get a proposal, or in some cases meet with the other executive stakeholders. One of my favorite questions to give everybody is like, when you're in a sales meeting, you talk to somebody, like you may think, oh, I got this person, it's great. You have to ask, who are the other key stakeholders involved in a decision-making process to, start using a service or product like ours? What are their names and titles? When can I have a meeting with them? Maybe not directly in that order, but the goal of every meeting is to book a meeting from a meeting. And so you never want to get to the end of a meeting without getting the next meeting on the books, ideally with some other stakeholders if they weren't in the room. And the internal employee can usually look in their internal calendar system and see when they're free. And then that saves 17 emails back and forth, and they ghost you because they forgot about it. And we're going to meet in 2 weeks. I also talk a lot about a POS-STORE sales framework, where when sales reps, whether it's an SDR, an account executive, the VP, sales, fractional sales CEO, whoever it is, you always want to start by talking about the problem. And Shahid, let me ask real quick, what time is it for you right now?
You're asking me the time?
Yeah. I'm going to use it as an example.
9:20.
Nailed it. I asked a question that directed your attention, albeit a little confused, directed your attention to your phone. You got it out of your pocket, you looked at it. So when you're selling, you need to have a list of questions that direct your future customers to the pain point and the problem that you solve. So if they're not problem aware in that moment, they don't care what you have to say. Nobody needs to buy something when it's not top of mind. They're not experiencing any pain or frustration. And so learning how to talk about the problem. And then the A is accentuate the problem. Let's twist the knife. Let's talk a little bit more about all of the time that you are wasting, the fact that you're not able to meet your sales quotas, but you're also not able to make it to your kid's soccer game, or you're at your daughter's dance recital, checking your phone, trying to see if you can close this deal because you're not able to do it in a normal, like entrepreneurs have normal time frames and boundaries in their lives. But the gist being like, what are the things that they're suffering and causing them this stress and tension such that they're now interested in hearing about a solution. So the S is solution. Like, what might this solution look like?
You make them aware of the pain points, bring it really clear in their mind.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And this is true for every communication. Like when you send a follow-up email, remind them about the problem. When you kick off the second, third, fourth meeting, remind them about the problem, the pain point. Play back the quotes or like things that they said in earlier sales meetings. Use their words. Don't translate it into jargon you speak about synergistic low-hanging fruit and dog food. About, hey, you mentioned that your goal is to do 300,000 in sales this month and every month, but last month you only did 212, and I think you're on pace for 230K this month. That's over 70K that you guys need to fix. What are you doing, or what do you think might help to fill in some of that gap? And I'd love to explore ways that some of our solutions might help. And then you get to the T of transformation. Like, well, what would your business look like if instead of falling under that 300K, you started getting 350, 375, 400K every month consistently? What would you be able to reinvest that capital in the business to achieve? What else would you be able to cut, delegate, systematize? Are there other markets or verticals? Are there new products or services? You want to launch a new product? Hey, I've got this great product brief worksheet I'll send you. And Shahid, I'll give it to you to actually drop in the show notes here for the listeners. Like, it takes 4 hours. It's not an easy thing to go through, but it spells out everything you need to launch a new product and to plan it in advance and to get your team's help and to have the marketing messaging and the landing page and lead magnet and think about the pricing and how many you need to sell. Yeah.
If you can send that in via email, we'll add it in the show notes. We know the importance of team building, obviously, and especially when you're bringing in fractional CEOs, they need to become part of the team in a way. What qualities should entrepreneurs look for assembling a team when they're looking for that additional help? And how can they delegate that responsibility for the end result of more success for the company?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the key things to look for is this person a giver versus a matcher or a taker. And there's a great Adam Grant book and TED Talk about givers, matchers, and takers. Like, givers want to give. They want to help other people. Our number one core value at Malloy Industries is to be relentlessly generous. We're always
givers gain, right?
Yeah. I got a book over here from Joe Polish I'm reading called Life Gives to the Giver, which is brilliant. It's full of advice from him. And I think, so that's one. Are they a giver? The second is, do they have a positive attitude? Like, or are they, does it look like they're going to make excuses or say, blame the technology, the leads, throw
always
somebody
blaming.
else on? Yeah, never. Like, and here's a great leadership thing. Like, as a leader, everything that goes wrong is my fault. Everything that goes well is somebody else's fault. You give the credit, you take the blame. Similar to you praise publicly, you lift everybody up, and then you reprimand privately. If somebody needs a little slap on the wrist, metaphorically, do that in a one-on-one. Don't put them on blast in a team meeting.
Chastise them in public.
Yep. And one of the questions I love in interviews for being able to tell if somebody is a giver and if they have the self-awareness too, is to ask them, who are 3 people that you have helped advance in their careers throughout your career? And you're really looking to see, are they coaching, mentoring, bringing other people up, or are they just focused on, I made this person even better, I made this person
me?
Yeah, you want good leaders don't make good followers, they make more good leaders, and they're pulling people up and they're able to teach people how to fish. And I like the nursing framework of see one, do one, teach one. Like, hey, we're quick learners, we got a growth mindset. I also like asking people like, what's one book you read in the past year, or what's something new you're learning right now, to make sure that they're not just like content and I know everything and I don't need to be a student of the game. Like, dude, there's with AI, there's just new stuff coming out all the time. If you're not learning, you're falling behind.
Good. So are there any strategies regarding cash flow management or creating more stability when you're achieving rapid growth?
Yeah, great question. And I think I hinted at this earlier. Like, I went bankrupt at 30. And so I did not know these things in my 20s. I'm 37 now. I picked up a few lessons. Cash is king. And if cash is king, then sales is queen. And so making sure you have a healthy pipeline and knowing that if you or the people that are generating the leads in your business take 2 weeks off and you have let's say an 8-week sales cycle, in 6 to 8 weeks, you're probably going to have some issues closing less deals because you don't have as many leads coming in. And so thinking thoughtfully, especially on like end of December holidays, or if there's like summer vacation breaks, like I was off last week and like we didn't have new leads really coming in while I was off. And I know in about 6 weeks or so, there might be a gap if I don't do some hard work to pick it up. Another good cash lesson is that 10% of all you earn is yours to keep. And this is like the thesis from The Richest Man in Babylon, which is a brilliant book. And the idea being like, as money comes in, make sure 10% is either one, if you can afford it, paying you as the entrepreneur, or going into savings accounts. And I would even say 10% for you, 10% for savings, 10% for taxes. You should have a separate bank account or bucket that's just taxes. So that way you don't get crushed having to pay your taxes. Like, I've seen business owners who unexpectedly get a 5 or 6 figure tax bill and like didn't have acorns that they had put away for that. I also think when you're hiring someone, whether it's a full-time or fractional, have 6 months of their paychecks in a bank account that you don't touch except for paying people. So you don't risk running out of cash 2 months in and like need to fire somebody because you didn't budget the money correctly. This is something I learned in 2015 when I made this mistake and had to have some difficult conversations because of our seasonal cash flow and not having all of that thing in savings. And then I would also encourage you to have a cash flow forecast. Like you can do it in QuickBooks, you can do it in fancy software. I do it in Google Sheets. And each month we have projected gross revenue, projected gross profit, actual gross revenue, actual gross profit. And that helps us know, hey, what are we expecting in this month? And I look at it almost every day. Not like I stare at it and like wax poetically, but let me just take a look, peek. Okay, what are the invoices we're sending out? When money's coming in? And then I'm also looking at our sales pipeline to understand. And if you think of the pipeline too, I'm not looking at the top. I start at the bottom. I was like, who's got a contract we're waiting to sign? Okay. Who's got a proposal we're waiting to get the blessing to go to the contract? All right. Who do we have to write a proposal? Okay. Who's currently meeting with the fractional executives? And then we need to have the debrief meeting so that we can get to the proposal contract stage. All right. Who have we introduced? Who's in a first meeting, second meeting, working your way up? Because it's the ones at the bottom that are going to bring the cash in the soonest. Another thing that I'll recommend for everybody, if you're not doing this with your current clients, is to have a quarterly strategic business review. And I'll share again in the show notes, I have a phenomenal strategic business review agenda that kind of walks you through how to run this meeting and a little 4-minute training video on how to use it. It's designed to spend maybe 5 minutes talking about the past, and then the rest of the meeting, zooming out, looking at the whole business, being a trusted advisor, understanding what's gone well for them in the past quarter, what's not gone well, how do they feel in the present moment, what good is, what's stressing them out, and then looking to the future, what are they excited about, what are they anxious, worried about, to ultimately answer this question of what are the top 5 things that need to happen in your customer's business in the next year for them to feel more pride, confidence, and excitement. And as you get that list of 5, you can then map that onto your other products and services. And that's how you can strategically grow accounts, because they may not know that, hey, we got a fractional sales executive, but did you know that we also do qualified lead generation? We have SDRs who can fill the top of the funnel. We also have executive coaches or a fractional HR person. And you can then present those once you've identified that there is a problem, a pain point, that they're interested in a solution over the next year. And it's a great way to add additional value. And somebody's smart scientific research shows that it's 9 times easier for someone who's already paid you money to pay you again than it is for you to go get a stranger on the internet to buy from you for the first time.
So, Mike, what are the key differences between hiring a firm that will come in and grow your sales, organize things, automate things, help you scale, compared to hiring on a fractional executive?
Yeah, great question. And I think, and I'm going to say there's 3 options here, because in some instances, Malloy Industries is the firm that will bring in this fractional executive. And the other scenario is hiring the full-time employees for the company, where they need to write the position description, post it online, source a bunch of candidates. You get 50 resumes. How can you tell who are the good ones, the bad ones? You got to vet them, interview them, whittle it down,
so
do the reference checks. Yeah.
So this is a solution for when you're looking to hire an executive into your firm. It provides a better service. What you're offering here is not, you can't really compare it to bringing on a firm, all-in-one firm, for example, to come in and help you with those things that you need to scale it to 20 million.
Yep, exactly. And I think that the fractional executives are a much more cost-effective way to get the expertise that you're missing. There's always something that you as an entrepreneur are not an expert in. And instead of hiring like a mid-level manager for like $100K salary, let's call it 125 with benefits in there, you're able to get a expert with decades of experience who can solve that problem maybe in 8 to 10 hours a week. And instead of paying them 6 figures, like you're paying 5, 10, 15K a month, depending on what it is that you need. And there's that flexibility where I was meeting earlier today, actually, with a fractional HR executive. If you have 10 employees, like you don't need to talk to me more than like once a week for something. And then something comes up, you have me, but it's an on-demand model there on the HR side, where it's not typically a large retainer. It's, hey, we're here when you need us. You have an HR person when HR things come up. But if you, again, are in the 10 to 20 employees, you don't need as much. When you're getting up to 50 to 100, you got to build out that HR function. And there are a lot of headaches and problems that you want to get ahead of before things catch on fire, and know that you also have the bat phone to like, hey, call Malloy when something goes wrong, you need help with something. I got a guy. Like, There's the great Henry Ford quote. I don't know
We
the
got a
answer to
guy.
almost anything, but I can pick up this phone here
Yeah.
and call my guy, and he'll tell me what to tell you. And that's how I built this whole business, is surrounding myself with people way smarter than me.
Yeah, no, that's the key. You don't need to know everything. So it's great to have you on the show, Mike. Thank you so much for your time. It was great chatting with you. I'm excited to see where this goes, because we're looking at executives, we're looking at individuals with proven records to come in and help you scale 10x as fast as possible.
Yeah, speed is a force.
Yeah.
Do it now. And the faster you can get moving. And one of the benefits too is, like, we can onboard a fractional executive in 2 or 3 weeks. Let's talk. Let me match you with 3 people you're going to interview. You want to get rolling. We just had somebody, I think it took 2.5 weeks from a Wednesday meeting to they started on a Monday to tomorrow. They're going with them in person to a trade show to help grow their sales.
That's great, Mike. Appreciate you. So how can anyone get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm always happy to connect on LinkedIn, Mike Malloy with the little sunglass emoji. And if you want to learn more, you can go to malloyindustries.com/pod, POD. And again, that's MALLOYINDUSTRIES.com/pod. Would love to connect with any listeners, and we'll share a couple resources in the show notes below as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Filling in.